Hello there, I'm Big Alias, and this is a game. I really haven't thought this commentary through very well, so I haven't come up with an opening quip like bananas falling over carrots and sausages. Other things that are shaped like bananas, but not quite as curved. The worst start to a commentary ever. I want to talk about this thing, and the silly intro aside, I actually want to be kind of serious about what I'm talking right now, and then lead it on to Gears of War. So if you did come here to find out what I thought of the Gears of War 5 beta, then overall, yes, I loved it, and I think it was great, but there's something that I want to talk about prior to this, because it's something I'm quite honestly quite fed up with seeing, and I'm going to adjust my mic. So this is something that kind of occurred as of, or for me, I noticed this first with the Battlefield 3 beta, and it's this notion of the apologist, and you'll get this in all walks of life. This isn't just referring to gaming, but I'm going to tie it to gaming so that it sort of becomes as understanding as possible. It's this notion of the apologist, which is the person who asks the man in charge, or the woman in charge, or whoever in charge, to bend them over and prepare them for an... Probably shouldn't finish that sentence. But they're the people who are just okay with bad things happening to them from an entity that shouldn't be treating them poorly. And obviously you see a lot of this in things like the workplace and with politics, with the government. Hey, it's okay, they're doing what they do, and I guess I have to suffer for that. And particularly where I worked, when I worked in retail, I would always encounter people who would say to me, like, they just cut my hours in half, and they changed me, they moved me to another department, and they've given me 3 people's jobs and added another responsibility on top of that. So you know what? But it's okay. it's a job. And I understand there are a lot of people who are sort of, incapable of standing up for themselves, and I get that this is sort of status quo thing, like, I don't want to be a troublemaker, I just want things to be okay for myself. I don't want to be a problem, because then problems may be thrusted upon me, and I understand that, but at the same time, I think this is a extremely counterproductive and damaging thought process to go through. And you tend to find that those people are just like, yeah, they've completely fucked me over, bent me over the table and done things to me, but I guess it's a job and I got to do it. When you don't fight back against that, when you don't push back against someone doing that to you, then they're just going to keep pushing you and pushing you and pushing you further. And I know they hated me where I worked in that place, because I would keep pushing back, and I would keep, saying to them, no, I'm not okay with this, I'm not okay with this, I'm not okay with this. And I tended... a lot of the time they'll be combative back at me, but overall there were quite a lot of moments where I would push back, and they would have to concede because I did that. And I would recommend that for any walk of life that you're in. I know that I started this channel wanted to talk about things like this. I know this is kind of me giving advice and all of this, and it seems kind of crazy, but I would definitely say that if you have the possibility, I would recommend not just allowing things to happen, and not just saying, hey, this is the power that be, and they tell me how to be, and they tell me what to do, so I'm just going to follow that. I think it falls into 2 categories, and again, I'm going to get political, and I need to stop getting so political on this channel, but it falls into 2 categories, and I think they tend to lean in the direction of liberal or conservative. Of course, everything does, and I think the conservative mentality is to say, well, look, they're a business, they have to run like a business, this is what they have to do. Whereas the side that I fall on, and I don't want to align myself in any particular way, but I think I've made it fairly obvious how I feel about things like this in corporate entities. The side that I fall on is the notion that if we allow these people to continue to do these things, it's just going to get worse. It will continue being a problem, because you're saying, I'm okay with this, and this is going to keep happening, and that will not only affect you, but it's going to affect other people down the line also. And we shouldn't, that unfortunately my side is losing existentially in the Western civilization, in that we have unchecked capitalism now, where it's just, hey, just let them do whatever they want, huh? And sort of the apologist notion, which is, as I said, extremely counterproductive to the person who is the person who is apologizing to, or not apologizing, but allowing the company to apologize whilst fucking them up the ass. Now it's just gonna get flagged. The notion of just being okay with these things is allowing these companies to continue doing these things, which leads me quite neatly onto the notion of why I hate the way the internet receives betas and the way that the internet responds to betas, because you always, in every single beta, and as I said, this started with Battlefield 3, which is the first beta that I took part in, I think. Actually, I think Bad Company 2 was, but I didn't really pay attention to what was going on around it. But with Battlefield 3, obviously, there were a lot of people who were pissed. If you weren't a gamer around that time, it was 2011, and essentially the game was completely broken. The beta was absolutely broken. So people took to the internet to say, this is ridiculous, I'm going to cancel my pre-order, they can't handle this, they can't deal with this is broken. And that was when I started seeing people say what I'm seeing with Gears of War 5, which is, it's a beta, get over it. It's not a working game, it's not fixed. This is the point of a beta. You always get that line, this is the point of a beta, this is why this is a beta. And it's always, you're so stupid, society is so stupid. And of course, I see this, I've seen this with Gears of War 5 on social media. People, if you don't know, the issue with Gears of War 5 is that you load the beta, and by the way, it's not a tech test, it is a beta, and I will get into that later in the video. Rod, shut the fuck up, it's not a tech test. But you load the beta, and you get a screen, rather than it putting you into the game, you get a screen saying you're in a queue, and if you were born after 1995, a matchmaking queue is where they say that the server is too full, and you can't enter into the server. You get a wait time. Usually it isn't actually a wait time, it's a number of people who have to leave before you can enter the server. This is a wait time. It was a box saying anything between, as far as I could tell, sort of 10 minutes, and someone had 51 days wait time, which I think the internet had determined was when the game comes out. So, and by the way, the fact that they had days programmed into the waiting time is a little bit telling of the way that they dealt with this beta, and that perhaps maybe they knew this would happen and Microsoft didn't give them the support that they needed. But yeah, so there's these huge wait times, and people were taken to the internet to say, this is not okay, this is ridiculous, what's going on? And of course you get the people saying, oh god, here we go, people complaining about, it's a beta, get over it. As I said before, it's a beta, it's a tech test. And at the end you get the little, I saw one where it was, God, people are so ridiculous nowadays, which in itself is such an incorrect statement, because this has been going on for almost a decade as far as I can tell. This has been going on for such a long time. It's not nowadays, but that actually feeds into the larger narrative. But yeah, it's not nowadays. This has been going on for a very long time. People have always had a problem with this, and there are a myriad of reasons that we should have an issue with poor betas, and I'm going to go through those now. So firstly, a beta test for server load issues and what could go wrong and what will go wrong, and then they expect feedback from you in return. My first question is to these people who are okay with this, how are we going to feed information back? I understand it might be annoying that we're complaining about it, but we're complaining about it so that they know, so that we can feed information back. Okay, for people to whom it takes a long time, for people to whom it's 20 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, you may think, oh, you're just being impatient. Wait, well, firstly, it's a video game. Waiting shouldn't be an expected factor. It's a game, it's interactive. That's what you do. You do things in the game. You may be able to tell that these people piss me off quite a bit. You do things in the game, it's an interactive process, so waiting shouldn't be an accepted part of it. But also, people weren't just waiting 20 minutes, half an hour. There were people who were waiting 2 days, 3 days, 50 days, 30 days. Now, well, they weren't actually waiting that, but that was a wait time. Now, these people will never be able to feed information back to Coalition, who are the people who make Gears of War. So, if they're not able to feed information back to Coalition, their complaint is that they are physically, literally, not allowed to play the game. They cannot play the game, which I think is a perfectly valid complaint. Now, Coalition are asking for feedback. That is the point of a, as you like to quote so much, tech test or beta. That is the point of the beta, is for us to feed information back. They need us to go into the game and tell them what's wrong. We're telling them what's wrong. We can't play the game. I'll tell you the issues with the game, which you'll then be able to apply to the game, which by the way only comes out in about a month and a half. So it will be going gold in about a month. I don't know what they're going to be able to do in that time. But when we say there's a problem, that's the problem. Once we get into the game, once we finally do, your feedback that you asked for us, exactly what you wanted from this beta, will come to you late because you were unable to manage the server load. Which leads me to my next issue. This is not the Coalition's first game, and it's not even the Coalition's first Gears of War game. They've done exactly this in the past, and this applies to Battlefield, to Call of Duty, to all of these betas that come out that are broken like this and that have server issues. This is not the first time you've even run a beta for something like this. There was a beta for Gears of War 4. I really don't understand how these issues continue, and in the case of Battlefield, get worse. And I know that, you know, there weren't too many issues with there were a ton of issues with 5, but things like 1 was okay. But between 3 and 4, the problems that I talked about in 3 got worse in 4. Now, I don't understand what happened within the inner workings, but logic dictates this just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make, particularly when there aren't really too many differences between Gears of War 4 and Gears of War 5. Again, as I said, it's a great game, but the issues aren't that large. It's still the same gameplay. There's still the same variables and the same meta that you have to take into consideration. It's not like you're reinventing the wheel by releasing this game. This beta is something you have done before many times, and I don't understand how you can't just get that right. And on to my next point, which is that you are throwing this out to the public. You are releasing this to the public. Now, gamers have existed for a long time. Gamers have been extremely vocal for an incredibly long time, over a decade now, thanks to things like YouTube and Twitch TV, so on and so forth. Gamers are incredibly vocal and they like to talk about games. I don't know how you couldn't have the foresight to know that people would have an issue with this, particularly when there are things like social media, particularly when you're using that social media to advertise your game, knowing that information spreads from person to person, and then complaining when those people use that same platform to complain that your product wasn't complete. Now, it is a product, and I'll go into that later. Also, yes, I understand that it's not complete. Yes, I understand that the point of it is that it isn't complete and that it needs to be prepared and that we're helping it to be prepared. But at the same time, kind of who are you kidding yourself? We are on the internet. We are interactive. We are going to be talking to one another. You want us to get hyped about this and to talk about this. If this is what you're giving us, then this is what we're going to talk about. I know it seems kind of ridiculous to say that it just makes sense that people are angry with something that isn't complete and that doesn't work. I know that seems ridiculous, but they should know that, is what I'm saying. If I know it, if the internet knows it, if this guy is saying that people are getting worse and worse and worse, so he's picked up on it. If we all know that, then you should know before giving something out to the public, before giving the public access to something, to your product that will be coming out pretty soon and that is, you know, one of your flagship products, you should be prepared. You should know that people are going to say this if everything isn't immaculate, which is why I think having a beta that actually does this, that actually, you know, and calling it a tech test is not going to help, by the way, because if it functions as a beta, then it's a beta. But having a beta like this and giving it out and giving it to people and not having it be complete enough for them to even get in, you know you're going to get backlash, and I think you should probably just present it as a demo and say, look, this is a demo, and just have it finished, have it done. Obviously that makes testing it difficult, which leads me on to my big point, my biggest issue. Now, you could say that the reason for this, the reason that this is okay, is because, hey, look, you weren't allowed to get in because the servers were full. They have everyone they need. You can wait and jump in and try to help, but right now you're in the queue because they don't need you right now, okay? That's how it's working. Now, that would be fine. That would be fine with a free beta. The problem is, this beta isn't free. This beta was not free, or tech test or whatever. It wasn't free. I think a lot of people have motion detected at the front door. I think a lot of people live in the past with regards to things like betas. They live with this notion that betas are free and that there's something that is given to us, and in return we give them feedback. Now, this beta was given to people who pre-ordered Gears of War 5 and to people who have the Ultimate Game Pass. Part of the Ultimate Game Pass transaction is that I get things like Gears of War 4, or Halo the Master Chief Collection, or Resident Evil 5. I get these 4 games. It's a transaction, I pay, and I get access to this. The same goes for this beta. I have paid for this beta because I'm part of the Ultimate Game Pass. The people who pre-ordered Gears of War 5 have made a commitment to buy the game in order to get into the beta. This is not free anymore. It used to be free. Betas used to be free, alphas used to be free back in the day. They're not. So to say that these people got here first and that you're on the back pedal and that you're waiting to get into the beta because you're not needed right now is to say that you've paid for access to this thing, but we're not going to give it to you because we don't need you right now. And part of the problem with that is that, again, it's a beta. It ran for a weekend and we're not allowed to access the game during that time. This is a product. I don't know how many times I have to tell people this is not a free product. This is something that people have paid for and they're being told at the gate, you're not coming in. You paid for a ticket to this concert, but the band are tired and they can't really play right now, so off you go. We're going to let these 200 people in, but just not this other 200 people because they're kind of tired and they don't really want to play to a 400 person audience. You won't get a refund you've paid for your ticket. You know, these are all problems. Everything that goes into what I'm saying is their issues. We shouldn't be okay with this, and by being okay with this, we're actually being extremely counterproductive. We're telling Rod and whoever's involved in the Gears of War team, no problems with your game, is fine. And then when it releases broken, because we've all just been apologists and been okay with it being completely broken and not being able to access the thing that they want us to test, because we've done that, because we've been apologists, there's nothing they can do to improve themselves. And this is kind of an issue that's going on in the world right now with regards to, and again I'm going to get political, but with what Donald Trump said about those congresswomen saying that you know, they shouldn't be able to criticize America. If they want to criticize America, they should just go home. That is a very scary notion. Firstly, because it's, you know, unbelievably racist, but also because telling people that they can't criticize your nation or they'll go is the biggest step into a dictatorship that you can take. Because by telling people you can't criticize my nation, or let's say you can't criticize my game company, or you can't criticize my store, get out if you want to, there is no way to improve things. There's no way to change things. You're saying, I'm going to be the person who makes all the rules, I make every change, I am not going to accept feedback from anyone or anything with regards to how this ecosystem that we're all a part of should work, which is why it's the biggest leap into dictatorship, because that's what dictatorship is. It's one person saying, I make the rules, you do as you're told, you have a problem with that, get out or go to prison. And so that's why that's a very scary notion, and that's why being apologists, honestly, the notion of just being okay with these things and not criticizing things is very damaging. It's extremely damaging in every walk of life. So I would say that if possible, you know, the biggest piece of advice I've ever given on this channel is that don't tie yourself down to having to be a part of something until you're happy with the thing that you're a part of. And by which I mean, you know, don't start a family, don't get loans, don't buy a car on finance until you're happy with how you're funding that thing, so that you can critique things, so that you can work things around yourself. Now, with all of that said, the beta itself is great. I really liked it. The gameplay is awesome. It's super fun. It's that raw, powerful Gears of War gameplay. I've always loved the way that Gears of War seems to find the perfect balance between sort of chaos and madness and actually being grounded and not being silly like the Exosuit Call of Duties, whereby you actually feel as though you deserve the kill you got because, yeah, it was crazy and manic and the gun feels like it weighs a ton and you look like you weigh a ton and it just doesn't make any sense, and there are giant monsters with huge growling gnarls and it's awesome. But you do feel as though you earned a kill because you covered in the right place and you utilize movement and you utilize what weapon to use and stuff like that. So it's great. I love Gears of War. Gears of War 2 is one of my favorite games ever made. And it's gorgeous and the maps are great. I play on arcade mode because, I mean, quite honestly, I wouldn't ever consider myself a fan of Gears of War Online. However, I've played quite a bit of this. This is easily the most Gears of War Online I've ever played. I didn't really like Gears of War 1 or 2 online because there was a lot of no respawns, and if you watch my channel a lot then you know how much I hate games without respawn. And 3, I liked, but I don't know, I just didn't really get into the multiplayer. 4, I didn't either, but I played quite a bit of this. It's been a lot of fun. So from someone who doesn't really play much Gears of War online, if you're in the same situation and you're thinking of trying it, I'd absolutely recommend it. As I said, it will be on Game Pass for free, you know, and I will say that they dealt with those issues fairly quickly to the Coalition's merit, and I don't tie everything that I'm talking about to them. But it honestly, as crazy as it sounds with such a negative commentary, the game is great, and I am looking forward to it, and it's sure to have a badass campaign. I like the Gears of War 4 campaign. I wouldn't say that it was as good as the original trilogy, because I like that sort of gritty gameplay and that gritty aesthetic, and it was quite clean. Gears 4 was quite clean, though it was beautiful, and I didn't really resonate with the characters as much, but it was still fun as hell, and I think Gears 5 campaign will be fun as hell too, so I definitely will be playing it. So that's my opinion on that. Don't be an apologist, and Gears of War 5 is actually kind of awesome.